My name is Chloe Carter. At 34 years old, I had finally clawed my way to the top and bought the one thing that symbolized it all: a stunning home nestled in the green suburbs of Seattle. After years grinding away as a leader in the tech industry, I managed to put away enough for the $2 million estate that was a monument to every sacrifice I'd ever made. What was supposed to be the crowning achievement of my life, however, quickly spiraled into a living nightmare. During my housewarming party, my sister Rebecca made an announcement so stunning it silenced the entire room and left me utterly speechless. Before I get into the thick of it, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, so drop a comment below. And if you're here for the kind of family drama that makes you feel better about your own, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more stories just like this one. Growing up in a perfectly average, middle-class part of Seattle, my family life seemed normal from the outside. We weren't showered with luxuries, but my parents worked hard to make sure we never went without the essentials. My relationship with my older sister, Rebecca, was what you might describe as a tangled web of affection and expectation. She was 4 years my senior and naturally slipped into a motherly role for me. She was my homework helper, my defender against schoolyard bullies, and she'd even let me raid her closet for clothes, even when our mom insisted she didn't have to. But as we got older, our life trajectories shot off in completely opposite directions. Rebecca chose the path my parents always championed as the traditional one. She met Mark, who would become her husband, in her second year of college. They were married by the time she was 23, and by 30, she was a mother to 4 lovely daughters: Ava, Olivia, Grace, and Isabel, who are now 12, 10, 8, and 5. Rebecca had to leave college when she found out she was pregnant with Ava, and Mark found a job as a sales rep for a big pharmaceutical firm. They weren't destitute, not by a long shot, but trying to raise 4 kids on one salary was a constant struggle. I, on the other hand, went a different way entirely. I poured every ounce of my energy into my studies, which paid off with a full ride to the University of Washington to study computer science. While Rebecca was deep in the world of diapers and baby formula, I was pulling all-nighters as an intern at burgeoning tech startups. While she was putting her personal touch on their modest 3-bedroom house, I was stepping into my first executive role at a tech company with massive potential. My career didn't just happen. It was something I fought for with extraordinary grit. I started out as a junior developer, routinely working 80-hour weeks for years on end. I skipped family holidays to hit impossible deadlines. I put dating and any semblance of a social life on the back burner to scale the corporate ladder. At 28, I made history at my company as the youngest female chief technology officer. By 32, a rival tech giant headhunted me with a package that doubled my already impressive salary, an offer I simply couldn't turn down. Throughout all those years of climbing, I lived a surprisingly simple life. I had a comfortable but small apartment downtown, drove a sensible car, and funneled most of my income into investments. My only real splurge was travel. I took 2 international trips a year to disconnect and recharge. All that time, I was methodically saving for something that would represent success on my own terms, a home that was mine and mine alone. When I finally laid eyes on the perfect house, I knew in my gut that this was it. It was a magnificent 5-bedroom colonial-style home, perched on 2 acres of flawlessly manicured grounds in one of Seattle's most desirable suburbs. It was the physical embodiment of all my dreams. It had a chef's kitchen with gleaming marble countertops, a home office lined with custom-built bookshelves, a sun-drenched room that looked out onto a blooming garden, a sparkling swimming pool, and a master suite that felt more like a 5-star hotel. The $2 million price was steep, but my disciplined saving meant I could afford it without putting myself in a precarious financial position. The moment I signed the closing documents, a wave of accomplishment washed over me that is impossible to describe. This house stood for every late night, every missed celebration, every personal sacrifice that had led me to this point. I had a vision for every single room. The master bedroom was my personal sanctuary, complete with a cozy sitting area and a spa-like bathroom. One bedroom was designated as my home office, giving me the flexibility to work from home. Another was set up as a dedicated guest room for visiting friends. The fourth room was slated to become a fitness studio with a treadmill and weights. I was still undecided about the fifth, but I imagined it could become a library or maybe a craft room down the line. Planning the housewarming party was nearly as thrilling as buying the house. I was bursting with joy and wanted to share it with everyone who mattered to me. I sent out about 40 invitations to colleagues, college friends, a few neighbors I'd already met, and of course, my family. My parents, now in their 60s, were clearly proud but had a certain reservation about my purchase. "That's a tremendous amount of house for just one person," my mother remarked when I first showed her the photos, but I dismissed it as a generational gap in perspective. Rebecca and her family were naturally on the guest list. When I called to share the news about the house, her congratulations felt authentic, though there was a muted quality to it. "That's wonderful, Chloe. We'd love to come see it," she said. I found it strange that she didn't ask any follow-up questions about the house, especially since she normally loved talking about interior design and home renovations. In the weeks before the party, every free moment was dedicated to perfecting the house. I brought in an interior decorator to help with the main living areas, though I left several rooms mostly empty until I could decide on their final purpose. I arranged for catering from a high-end local restaurant, stocked up on premium wines, and even hired a professional bartender for the night. The morning of the party, I was buzzing with a mix of nerves and excitement. This event was about more than just showing off a new property. It was about putting down roots, creating a space to build my future, and celebrating a monumental life achievement. I had no idea that the day would become unforgettable for reasons I never could have imagined. On the morning of the housewarming, my eyes snapped open at 6:00 a.m., my excitement too high to allow for any more sleep. Even with a cleaning service having been through the day before, I found myself compulsively tidying each room, fluffing pillows, straightening art on the walls, and ensuring every detail was flawless. The caterers were set to arrive at 3:00 p.m., with guests expected to start trickling in around 5:00 p.m. By midday, beautiful floral arrangements had been delivered and thoughtfully placed around the house. White lilies in the entryway, a riot of colorful wildflowers in the sunroom, and elegant roses on the dining table. The bartender confirmed the alcohol delivery had arrived, and a rental company dropped off extra chairs and serving trays. At 2:30, my mother showed up, a full hour before I had asked her to. "I thought you might need some help," she said, even though everything was perfectly under control. As I walked her through the fully furnished rooms, I saw her gaze linger on the empty ones. "What on earth are you going to do with all these extra bedrooms?" she asked, standing at the entrance of what was to be my home gym, which for now held only a yoga mat and a set of dumbbells. "I have plans for all of them," I explained patiently. "This one will be a gym, that one is my office, the blue room is for guests." She just nodded, a vacant look in her eyes. "It just feels like so much wasted space for one person. Your sister could really use this kind of room, with the girls getting bigger." I quickly changed the subject, asking her to help me arrange platters in the kitchen as the caterers started their setup. I was accustomed to these little digs and had long ago learned to let them slide off my back. By 5:00 p.m., the first guests started to arrive. My colleague Jason and his wife came with a beautiful potted plant. My old college roommate, Stephanie, drove all the way from Portland, her jaw dropping as she took in the long, winding driveway and the elegant facade of the house. "You have done so incredibly well for yourself, Chloe," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. Over the next hour, more people filtered in. My father arrived, giving me a rare hug and a proud smile. "The house is magnificent, sweetheart," he said, his words simple but heartfelt, before making his way to the bar for a scotch. Neighbors I had only met in passing during my move came with bottles of wine and thoughtful housewarming gifts. By 6:30, the house was alive with the hum of conversation and laughter. The catering staff moved through the crowd with trays of appetizers, the bartender was skillfully mixing cocktails, and everyone seemed to be having a fantastic time. I had just finished giving a group of colleagues a tour of the backyard and pool area when I glanced at my watch and realized Rebecca and her family were still nowhere to be seen. I sent her a quick text. "Everything okay? Party's been going for an hour." Her reply was almost immediate. "Running late. Mark had to wrap something up for work. Be there soon." At 7:00 p.m., just as I was starting to think about serving dinner without them, the doorbell chimed. I opened it to find Rebecca, Mark, and their 4 daughters standing on my porch. Rebecca looked frazzled, her hair hastily tied back, wearing a dress that looked like it had been thrown on as an afterthought. Mark stood behind her, a strained smile on his face, holding a gift bag. The girls, in stark contrast, were practically vibrating with energy. "Sorry we're so late," Rebecca said, giving me a brief, distracted hug. The girls were just so excited, it took forever to get them ready. "Aunt Chloe, your house is a castle," exclaimed 10-year-old Olivia, darting past me into the foyer. "Girls, what did we talk about? No running in Aunt Chloe's house," Mark called after them, but Ava, Grace, and Isabel were already hot on their sisters' heels, their voices echoing in the high-ceilinged entryway. I led Rebecca and Mark out to the backyard, where most of the guests were mingling. Rebecca seemed distracted, her eyes scanning every corner, absorbing every detail of my home. Mark made some polite small talk with my colleagues, but I saw him keep shooting concerned glances at Rebecca. "Would you like a tour?" I offered. "Absolutely," Rebecca responded instantly. "The girls are probably already exploring anyway." As I showed them through the house, Rebecca's remarks grew increasingly sharp. "In the gourmet kitchen, this is bigger than our entire first floor. In my master bedroom, your closet could fit our girls' bunk beds. In one of the empty bedrooms, this would be perfect for Grace and Isabel. They've been sharing a room that's half this size." I could see Mark getting more and more uncomfortable with every comment. When we got to my home office, Rebecca lingered, tracing the edge of the custom-built desk with her hand. "You know, this room gets the best afternoon light. It would make a wonderful playroom." "Rebecca," Mark said quietly, a clear warning in his voice. She paid him no mind, moving over to the window. "And it's right next to what could be the girls' bedroom. It's a perfect setup, really." Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. I guided them back downstairs, where dinner was about to be served. The caterers had laid out an impressive buffet in the dining room, and guests were starting to line up. I saw my mother had already cornered Rebecca's daughters, helping them fill their plates. The youngest, Isabel, was perched on my mother's lap, a smear of sauce already staining the front of her dress. As everyone found their seats around the large dining table and several smaller tables I'd set up in the living room, I felt a fleeting moment of pure joy. My home was filled with people I loved. Everyone was happy, and I had created this perfect moment through my own hard work. If only that feeling could have lasted. Once everyone was settled with their meals, I stood at the head of the main dining table, holding my champagne glass. The chatter slowly died down as all eyes turned to me. "I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight," I started, feeling a warm sense of pride. "This house is the result of years of hard work and big dreams, and being able to share it with all of you means the world to me. Cheers to new beginnings and to the wonderful friends who share them with us." Glasses clinked around the room as people smiled and drank. Just as I was about to take my seat, Rebecca shot up from her chair across the table. The chair legs scraped loudly on the hardwood floor, making several guests jump. "Well, since we're making announcements," she said, her voice ringing out across the now silent room, "I have some exciting news of my own to share." Mark's head snapped toward her, his face a mask of alarm and weary resignation. My mother, still holding little Isabel, leaned in with keen interest. Rebecca took a deep breath, a strange, triumphant smile playing on her lips. "Mark and I have decided to make a big change. We're selling our house." A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. I was confused, but also relieved that her announcement wasn't something more dramatic. "Congratulations," I said. "Are you moving to a new neighborhood?" Rebecca's smile broadened as she looked right at me. "Not exactly. We're moving in here with you." The champagne glass nearly slipped through my fingers. "What? We're moving in with you," she repeated, her voice louder this time. "The girls need more space, and you have all these empty rooms. It just makes perfect sense." The room plunged into a deafening silence. I stared at my sister, convinced this had to be some kind of twisted joke, but her expression was one of pure determination, almost defiance. "Rebecca, I don't," I began, but my mother's voice cut me off. "Isn't it just wonderful?" she beamed, bouncing Isabel on her knee. "The girls will have so much more room to play and grow, and Chloe won't be rattling around in this huge house all by herself." Several guests, mostly old family friends who had known us our whole lives, started to nod and smile. To my absolute horror, someone started to clap and then others joined in. The applause spread through the room like a virus, punctuated by murmurs of congratulations. "That's so generous of you, Chloe," said my mother's friend Susan. "Family taking care of family, that's what it's all about," added my father's golf partner, raising his glass to me. I stood there, frozen, champagne glass still in my hand, as the brutal reality of the situation washed over me. My sister had just announced to a room full of people that she was moving her family into my house without ever breathing a word of it to me, and somehow, I was the one being applauded for it. Rebecca's daughters picked up on the adults' excitement. "We're going to live here?" asked Lily, her 12-year-old eyes wide with amazement. "Yes, sweetie," Rebecca confirmed. "Aunt Chloe has all this extra space and she wants to share it with us." "I get my own room," shouted Sophie, the 8-year-old, jumping out of her seat. "Girls, settle down," Mark said under his breath, but it was too late. The children's excitement was a tangible thing, adding another layer of impossible complexity to the situation. My mother set Isabel down and stood up. "Let's talk logistics," she said, as if it were all settled. "The girls can take the bedrooms in the east wing. And Chloe, you wouldn't mind moving your office into the sunroom, would you? It gets such lovely light." Rebecca nodded eagerly. "And we could turn that other extra bedroom into a playroom for the girls. The backyard is perfect for them to run around in, and of course, they'll love the pool in the summer." I finally managed to find my voice. "Wait, just wait a minute. We haven't discussed any of this." But Rebecca carried on as if I hadn't spoken. "We'll need to move some of the furniture around, of course. That dining table is way too formal for kids, and we'll need to put child-proof locks on the kitchen cabinets." Guests were starting to look extremely uncomfortable, their eyes darting between Rebecca and me. My colleague Jason caught my eye from across the room and raised his eyebrows in a silent, "Are you okay?" I had no answer for him. "Rebecca," I tried again, my voice firmer this time. "This is the first I'm hearing of any of this." "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Chloe," my mother cut in. "We've all known this house is far too big for just you. It makes perfect sense for Rebecca and her family to move in. The girls need the space much more than you do." Rebecca pulled out her phone. "I've actually been looking at some bunk beds for the girls' room. What do you think of these?" She held up her screen, displaying a Pinterest page filled with children's bedroom furniture. Mark cleared his throat. "Maybe we should talk about this in private," he suggested, looking like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. "There's nothing to discuss," my mother declared. "Family helps family. That's how we raised you girls." The festive party atmosphere had completely vanished. Some guests were making awkward small talk, while others were shamelessly eavesdropping on our family implosion. My meticulously planned housewarming had been spectacularly hijacked. "Let me show you which bedroom I want," Emma announced, grabbing her younger sister's hand and pulling her toward the staircase. "Girls, wait," I called out, but they were already halfway up, their excited footsteps echoing through my brand new home. Rebecca turned to follow them. Come on, I'll show you the layout I'm thinking of. Grace and Isabel can share the blue room, and Ava deserves her own space now that she's almost a teenager. As they vanished upstairs, I stood in my dining room, surrounded by guests and half-eaten meals, feeling like I'd been dropped into an alternate reality. My dream home, my sanctuary, was being carved up and given away right before my eyes, and somehow I was being painted as the villain for even questioning it. I excused myself from the remaining guests and quickly followed Rebecca, my mother, and the girls upstairs. By the time I got to the second floor, Olivia and Grace were already bouncing on the bed in the room I had set up for guests. "Girls, please stop jumping on the bed," I said, my voice strained as I fought to keep the anger and confusion from boiling over. "Rebecca, we need to talk about this privately," I added, motioning toward my office. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of family," Rebecca shot back dismissively, yanking open closet doors to inspect the storage space. "These closets are huge. The girls will have plenty of room." My mother was in the next room, visually measuring the windows. "These rooms will need more colorful curtains. They're too sterile for children." I took a deep, shaky breath, fighting for composure. "I never agreed to any of this. This is my house. I just moved in." Rebecca whirled around to face me, her expression hardening. "You have 5 bedrooms, Chloe. 5. For one person. Do you have any idea how cramped we are in our house? Grace and Isabel share a room the size of your master bathroom." "That's not my problem," I said, the words coming out harsher than I intended. My mother gasped. "Chloe Carter, I did not raise you to be so selfish." "It's not selfish to want to live in my own house by myself," I shot back. "I worked my entire life for this. I saved for years." "And we haven't," Rebecca's voice rose. "Mark works 60 hours a week. I juggle 4 kids and a part-time job, but we're drowning, Chloe." For the first time, I really saw the dark circles under her eyes, the raw strain in her voice. Something was deeply wrong. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice softening. "Why are you really selling your house?" Rebecca's tough exterior cracked. "We're underwater on the mortgage. The housing market in our neighborhood tanked after that chemical plant opened nearby. We owe more than the house is worth, and the bank is threatening to foreclose." This was a bombshell. "Why didn't you tell me you were having money problems?" "Because you never ask," she exploded. "You're so busy with your perfect career and your perfect life. When was the last time you asked about our finances, or offered to help with the girls, or did anything that wasn't about your own success?" Her words were a gut punch, because they held a kernel of truth. I had been laser-focused on my own goals, maybe to the point of neglecting my sister's struggles. "That doesn't mean I agreed to have you move in," I countered. "This is something we should have talked about in private, not announced at my party." My mother stepped between us. "Chloe, when I was your age, family took care of each other, no questions asked. Your grandmother lived with us for 15 years. Your uncle stayed with us when he lost his job. It's what we do." "Times were different," I argued. "And I'm sure those arrangements were discussed beforehand, not sprung on someone." "I did try to discuss it," Rebecca said. "I called you 3 times last week, but you were always too busy with work and moving to talk for more than 5 minutes. She wasn't wrong. I had been distracted, rushing her off the phone to deal with contractors. Footsteps on the stairs announced Mark's arrival. He looked deeply uncomfortable as he entered the room. "Everything okay up here?" he asked, though it was painfully obvious that things were not okay. "Did you know about this plan?" I asked him directly. Mark hesitated, glancing at Rebecca. "We discussed the possibility, but I thought we were going to ask you privately this weekend." Rebecca shot him a venomous look. "We don't have time for that. The bank called yesterday. We have 30 days. 30 days until what?" I demanded. "Until they start foreclosure proceedings," Rebecca admitted, her voice finally breaking. "We're 3 months behind on payments. Mark's commission structure changed, my hours got cut, and with the girls' activities and medical bills. So your solution was to ambush me at my own party and declare you're moving in. I was incredulous. You have the space, Rebecca yelled, gesturing wildly around the bedroom. You have the money, you have everything. Would it kill you to share a little of it? My mother nodded in agreement. Your sister sacrificed a lot for you when you were kids. She watched you when I worked night shifts. She helped you with your college applications. She's always been there for you. The guilt trip was a classic move in our family. Rebecca's past sacrifices were always brought up whenever they wanted something from me. That doesn't give her the right to claim my house, I insisted. It's just temporary, Rebecca said, though her earlier announcement had sounded anything but. Just until we get back on our feet. And how long is that? I asked. A month, a year, 5 years. Rebecca's silence was answer enough. One of the girls, I think it was Ava, appeared in the doorway. Mom, can I have the room with the window seat? Before Rebecca could reply, I cut in. No one is getting any rooms because no one is moving in without my agreement. Ava's face crumpled, and I felt a pang of guilt. This wasn't the kids' fault. Now you're making the girls cry, my mother accused. Is your precious privacy really worth hurting your nieces? The situation was spiraling. Downstairs, I could hear the low murmur of guests, probably wondering what had happened to their host. Rebecca, this isn't just about space, I tried to explain. This is about boundaries and respect. You should have talked to me privately instead of cornering me in front of everyone. We don't have time for your boundaries, Rebecca snapped. We need a solution now. Mark finally spoke up. Rebecca, Chloe's right. We should have talked to her first. Rebecca whirled on him. Whose side are you on? Do you want to see your daughters out on the street? Of course not, he said quietly. But this isn't the way. My mother threw her hands up in exasperation. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My own daughter, with all this space and money, refusing to help her sister in her time of need. The accusation stung. Was I being selfish? Would it really be so awful to let them stay, at least for a while? But then I thought of all the other times temporary arrangements with Rebecca had stretched on indefinitely, all the times my boundaries had been steamrolled for the sake of family. I never said I wouldn't help, I clarified. But moving in together is not the only option, and it's not one I'm comfortable with. Rebecca let out a bitter laugh. Of course you're not comfortable. Heaven forbid your perfect, sterile life be disrupted by children and a little chaos. That's not fair, I started, but she cut me off. You know what's not fair? That you have all this. She gestured around the spacious room. While my kids are crammed into rooms the size of closets. That you take luxury vacations while we can barely afford a day trip to the coast. That you got to build a career while I had to give up college to raise a family. There it was, the resentment that had been simmering just below the surface of our relationship for years. This wasn't just about a house. It was about the divergent paths our lives had taken. I worked hard for what I have, I said quietly. I made different choices. You think I don't work hard? Rebecca's voice cracked with emotion. Try raising 4 children. Try holding a household together on a shrinking income. I never said that, I defended. But your choices are not my responsibility. The words were out before I could stop them, and I knew I'd crossed a line. Rebecca's face flushed with rage. My choices? You think my children were just choices I made to inconvenience you? Their family, Chloe, your family. I didn't mean it like that, I backpedaled. Yes, you did, she insisted. You've always looked down on me because you chose a career over a family. Well, some of us didn't have that luxury. The conversation had strayed so far from the issue of them moving in, dredging up decades of baggage. I had to get control. This isn't productive, I said. Let's all go back downstairs, try to enjoy what's left of the party, and we can discuss this tomorrow when we're all calmer. There's nothing to discuss, Rebecca declared. We've already started packing. The realtor is coming on Monday to list our house. The revelation felt like a physical blow. You've already started packing, without even asking me. We knew you'd say yes, my mother interjected, because that's what family does. I looked from my mother's determined face to my sister's, and I finally saw the pattern that had defined our relationship for my entire life. The unspoken assumption that my needs were always secondary, that my boundaries were suggestions, that my success meant I owed them anything they asked. In that moment, something inside me hardened. A lifetime of giving in to keep the peace finally gave way to a resolve to stand my ground. As we stood there in the upstairs hallway of my new house, the air thick with unspoken history, Rebecca suddenly collapsed onto the edge of the guest bed. Her shoulders started to shake as she buried her face in her hands. "You don't understand how bad things are," she sobbed. "We're drowning, Chloe. We are completely drowning." Despite my anger, a part of me ached to see my sister so broken. Mark sat down next to her, placing a gentle hand on her back. "The truth is," he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine, "we're not just behind on the mortgage. We've maxed out every credit card. We have medical debt from when Grace broke her arm last year and the insurance didn't cover everything. Rebecca's car needs a new transmission we can't afford." My mother moved to Rebecca's other side, wrapping an arm around her. "They've been struggling for a while, Chloe. They were just too proud to ask for help." I leaned against the doorframe, the weight of their collective expectation pressing down on me. "Why didn't you come to me sooner, before it got to this point?" Rebecca looked up, her face a mess of tear-streaked mascara. "Because you're my little sister. I'm supposed to be the one with her life together. I'm supposed to take care of you, not the other way around." The admission was jarring. For all these years, I thought she saw me as the selfish one who put career first. I never imagined she felt ashamed to need my help. "But to spring this on me at my housewarming," I questioned, "in front of everyone." Rebecca wiped at her eyes. "I knew if we were alone, you'd find a way to say no politely. You'd offer money or suggest a financial planner. But we need more than that. We need a home." My mind flashed back to our childhood, to all the times Rebecca had protected me, from taking the blame when I broke our mom's favorite vase to working 2 jobs one summer to help pay for my first college laptop. But I also remembered the other side of that coin. The guilt trips, the resentment, the expectation that I would always fold. One of her daughters, Olivia, ran into the room. "Mom, Aunt Chloe has a pool. Can we go swimming every day when we live here?" Rebecca managed a watery smile. "We'll see, sweetie." "The kids are already packed," Mark admitted, looking pained. "They each have a box of their most special things ready to go. They're so excited." The fact that they had let it get this far, that they had allowed their children to believe this was a done deal, reignited my anger. "You let them pack. You got their hopes up without even asking me." "We didn't have a choice," Rebecca insisted. "The bank gave us a final notice yesterday, 30 days to get current or they start the foreclosure process." "There are always choices," I countered. "You could have called me yesterday. We could have sat down and figured something out like adults." My mother stood up, her patience gone. "Enough of this. I've already told the family you're taking them in. Your cousin Brenda thinks it's wonderfully generous of you." "You told the extended family." I was floored. "Of course," my mother said. "For once, everyone's very impressed with you for something other than your job." The comment was a sharp jab, revealing her true feelings about my career. "I've even told the girls they can bring their dog," Rebecca added. "Dog? You never mentioned a dog." I didn't hate animals, but I had deliberately chosen a house with pristine hardwood floors and expensive rugs. "Butch is part of the family," Rebecca said defensively. "We couldn't leave him behind." Just then I heard more footsteps, and Grace appeared, clutching a tablet. "Aunt Chloe, look what Mom designed for your house." She pushed the tablet into my hands. On the screen was a Pinterest board titled New Home Renovations. I scrolled through it, stunned. Rebecca had a detailed plan to transform my home. Sliding barn doors, bunk beds in 2 rooms, a play area in my office, and child-friendly furniture to replace my carefully selected pieces. "When did you make this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I've been working on it for a few weeks," Rebecca admitted. "Ever since we knew we couldn't keep our house." "A few weeks," I repeated. "You've known for weeks that you might lose your house, and you never once had an honest conversation with me about it." "I tried," Rebecca protested, "but you were always so busy." "Not too busy for this," I insisted. Mark stood up. "Look, this has all gotten out of hand. Maybe we should just go home and talk about this tomorrow." "There's nothing to discuss," my mother said firmly. "Family helps family, end of story." "It's not that simple," I said. "This is my home, I decide who lives here." Rebecca's face hardened again. "So that's your final answer? You're going to let your sister and her children become homeless to preserve your perfect, pristine life?" "That's not what I said," I defended. "There are other options." "Like what?" Rebecca demanded. "We've tried everything. We've cut every expense. We've borrowed from Mark's parents. There's nowhere else to turn." "You could rent a smaller place," I suggested. "With what money? Our credit is shot. No landlord will take us." "I could help with a down payment on a more affordable house," I offered. "In this market, there's nothing affordable within an hour of the girls' schools, and we can't uproot them from their friends." Every suggestion I made was shot down. It became clear that Rebecca had decided moving in with me was the only acceptable outcome. The breaking point came when my mother said, "We'll need to clear out some of this furniture to make room for the girls' things. That glass coffee table is a death trap with small children around." Something inside me snapped. This was my house, bought with my money, a sanctuary I had spent years working for, and they were planning to dismantle it without my consent. "Enough," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Everyone needs to stop making plans for my house." "It's just furniture, Chloe," my mother dismissed. "Things can be replaced. Family is what matters." "It's not just about the furniture," I insisted. "It's about respect. It's about boundaries. And none of you have shown me either tonight." Rebecca stood, her vulnerability replaced by indignation. "Boundaries? Your nieces are about to lose their home, and you're worried about boundaries." "Yes," I said simply. "Because this is a pattern. You decide what you need, you ambush me with it, and you make me the villain if I don't immediately give in." "That's not true," she protested, but even Mark looked doubtful. "It is true," I continued. "And I've let it happen because it was easier than fighting, but not this time, not with my home." "So you're saying no?" Rebecca's voice was dangerously low. "You're refusing to help us." "I'm saying I won't be manipulated into a living situation I never agreed to," I clarified. "I'm saying I deserve to be consulted on decisions that affect my life." "Your home," Rebecca repeated bitterly. "That's all you care about, your precious home and your precious privacy." "What's not fair," she cut me off, "is that my children might be homeless while their aunt has 4 empty bedrooms in her mansion." The accusation hung in the air. I looked from Rebecca's furious face to my mother's disappointed one, to Mark's pained expression and the confused faces of my nieces in the doorway. I realized this was about more than a house. It was about finally standing up for myself in my own family. It was about breaking a cycle that had defined us for decades. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I think you should all go downstairs and rejoin the party," I said calmly. "I need a moment." "Running away won't solve anything," my mother chided. "I'm not running," I assured her. "I'll be down in a minute. I just need to get something from my office." They filed out reluctantly. As they went downstairs, I could hear my mother already making excuses to the guests. Alone in the hallway, I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes and gathering my strength. Then, I walked with purpose into my home office and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. I took a moment alone in my office, staring out at the manicured backyard I had been so proud of just hours before. The party downstairs had resumed, but it was a muted, hollow version of itself. In the bottom drawer of my desk, under a stack of folders, was a leather portfolio. I pulled it out, ran my hand over the smooth surface, and took a deep breath. This wasn't how I wanted to do this, but Rebecca's ambush had left me no choice. I tucked the portfolio under my arm and walked downstairs, my shoulders back and my head held high. This was my house, my life, my decision. The conversation in the living room died down as I descended the stairs. All eyes were on me, a mix of curiosity and discomfort on my guests' faces. Clearly, the drama had not gone unnoticed. Rebecca sat on the couch, defiant and tear-streaked, her daughters huddled around her. My mother was beside her, patting her hand, while Mark stood awkwardly by the fireplace. I walked to the center of the room and placed the portfolio on the coffee table. "I want to thank everyone for your patience," I began, addressing the whole room. "Family discussions can get a little emotional, as I'm sure you all know." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the guests. My colleague Jason caught my eye and gave a small, supportive nod. "Since this has turned into an impromptu family meeting," I continued, "I'm glad you're all here to witness what I'm about to share." Rebecca frowned. "What are you talking about?" I opened the portfolio and took out a set of documents, placing them face down. "About 3 months ago, I got a call from Craig Wilson, Mark's colleague at the pharmaceutical company." Mark's head shot up. "Craig called you." I nodded. He was concerned. He mentioned you'd been asking around for loans, that things were tight. He thought I might be able to help but didn't want to overstep. Rebecca's face flushed. He had no right. "Maybe not," I conceded, "but I'm glad he did, because after that call I did some digging." I turned over the first document, sliding it toward Rebecca and Mark. "This is a copy of your mortgage statement. You're not just 3 months behind. You're 5 months behind, and the bank has already started foreclosure proceedings." Mark looked away in shame. "The second thing I learned," I continued, flipping over another document, "is that the chemical plant hasn't just hurt your property value, it's made your house nearly impossible to sell." "How did you get these?" Rebecca whispered. "I have a friend in real estate finance," I explained. "Once I knew how serious it was, I wanted to help, but on my terms, not by being ambushed at my own party." I turned over a third document, this one with my attorney's letterhead. "So, 3 weeks ago, I purchased your mortgage debt from the bank." A stunned silence filled the room. Even the guests who had been pretending not to listen were now captivated. "You what?" Rebecca breathed. "I bought your mortgage," I repeated calmly. "The bank was happy to offload the debt. I now hold the lien on your house." My mother's eyes were wide. "You own their house." "In a manner of speaking, yes. I was going to tell you this weekend, privately. I was going to offer a solution that respected everyone." Mark stepped forward, his face a mixture of confusion and hope. "What kind of solution?" I pulled out the final document, a rent-to-own agreement. "You stay in your house. Instead of paying the bank an amount you can't afford, you pay me a reduced monthly amount that you can. We structure it so that in 5 years, you have the option to buy the house back from me at a fair market value, with a portion of your rent counting as a down payment." Rebecca stared at the paper, speechless. "This arrangement," I explained, "gives you stability. The girls don't have to change schools. You don't have to cram into someone else's space. And I don't have to give up the home I just bought." "You've been planning this for weeks," Rebecca finally asked, "without telling us." I met her gaze. "Yes, just like you've been planning to move into my house for weeks without telling me." The parallel was not lost on Mark, who let out a short, wry laugh. "She's got a point, Beck." My mother, however, wasn't convinced. "But why not just let them move in? There's plenty of space." "Because that's not what any of us really want," I said firmly. Rebecca and Mark need their own space to be parents. The girls need stability. And I need the home I worked so hard to create for myself. I was going to surprise you this weekend. Instead, you tried to guilt me into an arrangement that would have made us all miserable. Rebecca's face crumpled, the defiance finally giving way to shame. I was desperate, she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. You could have trusted me, I said simply. You could have asked for help instead of trying to manipulate me. Mark sat beside his wife, scanning the document. This is incredibly generous, Chloe. It's what family does, I said, echoing my mother's earlier words. We help each other, but with respect for boundaries. The room was completely silent. Even my mother seemed to be at a loss. One of the girls tugged at Rebecca's sleeve. Does this mean we're not moving to Aunt Chloe's castle? Rebecca looked at her daughter, then at me, understanding finally dawning in her eyes. No, sweetheart. It means we get to stay in our own home. Aunt Chloe helped us keep our house. Oh, Lily said, clearly disappointed. But I wanted the big room with the window seat. Despite everything, I smiled. You can come visit any time, Lily. The guest room with the window seat will always be waiting for you. The tension in the room began to dissolve. Guests slowly resumed their conversations. Mark and Rebecca were huddled over the document, talking quietly. Rebecca stood up and approached me, her eyes red but clear. Why? She asked. After everything I said, after how I acted, why would you do this? I thought for a moment. Because you're my sister, because those girls are my nieces, because we're family, but also because this solution works for everyone. It's help, not codependence. She nodded slowly. I need to think about this, talk it over with Mark. Of course, I said. The papers are filed, your house is secure. My mother finally spoke. I still think family should be together, she insisted, though with less conviction. We are together, Mom, I said gently. Just not under the same roof, and that's okay. As my guests began to leave, my colleague Jason was one of the last. That was quite a power move, he commented at the door. It wasn't meant to be, I admitted. I just wanted to help on my terms. He nodded. Sometimes standing your ground is the kindest thing you can do. After the last guest left, I turned to face my family, still gathered in my living room. The house felt vast and quiet, but it was still mine. And for the first time, I felt like Rebecca truly saw me, not as her little sister who owed her something, but as an equal. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but as I looked at the documents on my coffee table, I felt a flicker of hope that we could build something healthier than what we had before. After the last guest departed, I was alone in my new home, the remnants of the party scattered around me. My family had gone home to process everything. I moved through the quiet rooms, my mind replaying the evening, wondering if I had done the right thing. The next morning, a text from Rebecca. Can we talk, just us? We met at a quiet cafe. I want to apologize, she said as soon as we sat down. I shouldn't have ambushed you. It was manipulative and unfair. Her apology was a shock. They didn't come easily in our family. Thank you, I replied. I'm sorry, too, for springing my solution on you in front of everyone. No, she shook her head. You were cornered, I gave you no choice. Mark and I talked all night. We want to accept your offer, it's more than generous. Relief washed over me. I'm glad. I do want to help Rebecca, just not by sacrificing the life I built for myself. I understand that now, she admitted. I think I've been jealous of your freedom, your success. It was easier to call you selfish than to face my own resentment. Her honesty opened a door between us that had been closed for years. And I've been insensitive to your struggles, I acknowledged, focused on my career above all else. We both made choices, she said, echoing my words from the night before, but this time without the sting. Different choices, neither one better or worse. Over the next few weeks, we formalized the agreement. The terms were fair, giving them a real chance to recover. My mother was the last to come around. In my day, we didn't need all these lawyers and boundaries, she'd complain. Times change, Mom, I'd say. This gives everyone what they need: dignity, independence, and security. Slowly, she began to see that it was working. I started therapy to unpack the years of guilt and obligation. My therapist helped me understand that boundaries weren't selfish, they were essential. Boundaries aren't walls, she told me. They're bridges that let us connect safely. 3 months after the disastrous housewarming, I had Rebecca and her family over for dinner. The visit was relaxed, free of agendas. The girls swam in the pool, and I overheard Mark say to Emma, "Your aunt's house is pretty cool, huh?" "Yeah," she replied. "But I like our house, too. All my friends are there." It confirmed everything I believed. Rebecca and I started a new tradition of monthly sister dinners, just the two of us. We talked about things we never had before: her abandoned dream of being an interior designer, my occasional loneliness. "It's never too late," she told me once. "Look at us, rebuilding our relationship." My relationship with my nieces blossomed. I became the aunt I always wanted to be, connected by affection, not obligation. My dream home remained my sanctuary, but I learned to share it on my own terms. I hosted family dinners. The girls had sleepovers in the guest room with the window seat, and I even adopted a cat, deciding my pristine home could use a little chaos. A year after that fateful party, we gathered again at my house, just family this time. Rebecca raised her glass. "To Chloe," she said, "who taught us that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a boundary." "And to new beginnings," I added. "It's never too late." Later that evening, my mother found me in the kitchen. "You know," she said, "I was wrong that night. Your way turned out better for everyone. They have their dignity, the girls have stability, and you have your beautiful home. You've created something wonderful here, Chloe. Not just the house, but a new way for our family to be." She hugged me tighter than usual. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, words I had waited a lifetime to hear. The journey wasn't over, but we had a new foundation built on respect, not guilt. I came to understand that true security isn't in property deeds. It's in relationships where love and respect coexist, where helping doesn't mean self-sacrifice. Standing on my porch that night, watching the stars appear, I felt a sense of peace. I had not only claimed physical space for myself, but emotional space as well. What's your experience with family boundaries? Have you ever had to stand your ground when it was hard? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated, please like and subscribe for more real-life lessons. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is clearly define where you end and they begin. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.